One of the Canadians that is accused of attempting to perpetrate a terror plot here in Canada. Well, questions continue to swirl around how on earth did he get his Canadian citizenship, for starters? He appeared in an ISIS video, yet now we're hearing from our very own Canada's Mark Miller saying, well, maybe we should revoke his Canadian citizenship. Who knows what's going on here? Well, Brian Lilley certainly does, and does Warren Kinsella. Brian, there was a time when I remember someone in the Liberal Party saying a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. But now we have this man standing accused of trying to orchestrate a terror plot with his son. Yeah. And this is now a question mark that we all have. How the hell did he get Canadian citizenship, for starters? But now they're saying we need to revoke their Canadian citizenship. Make sense of this. Put this into context for us.
So, look, the Trudeau government knows when and where Ahmed El-Didi came into Canada. They know where he came from. They know when he arrived. They know who approved him. They know when he was granted citizenship rather than just refugee status, I assume is how he got here. And so they could tell us all of that, but they're choosing not to. And they say, well, there's privacy concerns and there's a process. No, they are actually allowed to tell us all this. It is in the public interest to know, but they don't want anyone to know because it happened under their watch, as much as they're going to try and blame Stephen Harper. Now, you're right. Mark Miller is saying we're going to look at revoking his citizenship. I'm going to play you a clip from the Monk debate. This is September 2015. I was there covering it, and Stephen Harper is under attack for his bill, which said if you're a dual citizenship or a dual citizen and you take up arms against Canada, then we will deport you and strip you of your citizenship. You had to take up arms. And the Trudeau guys ran on this, and they told every immigrant family, if your kid's caught shoplifting, they're going to be deported and have their citizenship taken away. And they fear-mongered on this. And Trudeau and Harper were debating one of the Toronto 18 who had his citizenship stripped away. And they got into whether that should happen. And here's what Trudeau said.
Terrorist attacks against this country.
A Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. You devalue the citizenship of every Canadian in this place and in this country when you break down and make it conditional for anyone. We have the rule of law in this country, and you can't take away citizenship if you don't like what someone does.
All right, so Adrienne, right after that, I'm in the scrums at Roy Thompson Hall at the Monk debates, and I asked Trudeau, I said, look, your father started the process of deporting Nazis. Would you continue that? And if so, what's the difference between that and these guys in the Toronto 18? And he said, well, the Nazi guys lied on their application. That's the difference. So he said he would still continue to deport Nazis, but the difference between that and taking up arms against Canada is they lied on their application. For Trudeau, it's not about your actions, it's about your paperwork and your process. And that's what's going on with El-Didi. They're not going to kick him out over allegations that he was involved in a terrorist plot or in this ISIS video. They're going to kick him out over lying on his application. That's more important to the Trudeau Liberals than trying to kill fellow Canadians and while pledging allegiance to the Islamic State.
Yet another cartoonish move, Warren, by a clown operation of a federal government. I suspect that if we went back and actually pulled other Prime Minister Stephen Harper clips, so much of what he said then is a reality now. You know, whether he knew that how prescient it would be or not is to be debated, but certainly a lot of what he had suggested and talked about is a reality now for the Trudeau Liberals. They don't seem to want to offend, yet at the same time allow so many people to come into this country unvetted and putting our national security potentially at risk.
Let's do that. Let's do what you just said. Let's go back and look. And I'm going to quote to you from a crazy, this is what the world thinks about us on this, by the way. This is from a crazy right-wing conservative news organization talking about us. Ahmed Rassan raises deep concerns in the United States. This 32-year-old Algerian-born terrorist was able to enter Canada with a false passport, claim refugee status, commit numerous crimes, draw welfare benefits, and easily evade deportation by creating a false identity and as a Canadian citizen with a Canadian passport. The crazy right-wing media organization, PBS, that was 30 years ago. 30 years they've had to fix this problem that the whole world was drawing their attention to, including the radicals at PBS saying, what the hell are you guys doing up there? You know, 9/11 was a wake-up call. ISIS was a wake-up call. Now we've got Hamas, right? And this government saying that they're going to accept thousands of people from Gaza who are coming from a jurisdiction that is run by Hamas. The way Hamas has escaped being wiped out by the IDF is by hiding among civilian populations in Gaza. Do we really think that those 5,000 that are coming here, we're not going to have some Hamas members hiding amongst them as well?
Hamas is going to pick who gets to leave.
Exactly. And they are doing that on a regular basis right now. So this problem has been going on forever, and reasonable people have been drawing our attention to it, and nobody's doing anything about it. Well, now Mark Miller's saying, okay, well, I'll do something because it's showing up in polling as a big concern of Canadians. Well, no shit, Sherlock. It's been a big concern of Canadians for a long, long time. Sorry for
I feel almost, Brian, that this government has September 10th mentality, that they're sort of sleepwalking and stumbling and bumbling their way through. Yet very real issues are happening under their watch that are, I'm not saying easily fixable, but certainly can be addressed by plugging some of these holes, not the least of which was this alleged terror plot by this father and son, with the father with the ISIS connection, wasn't even unveiled by our security services and security and intelligence services. We got it from we got the information from an ally.
From the French. Yeah.
France. So the crazy thing here is that I think you're right. They do have a September 10th mentality. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago, Marco Rubio, Tom Cotton, 4 other Republican senators wrote to Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security and said, look, we have seen an increase in the number of terrorists being caught at the northern border trying to enter the United States. It was over 230, more than one a day at the point that they wrote the letter. And they're about to bring in these 5,000 people from Gaza. And as Warren just said, problems with, are they going to be bringing in terrorists? We want some more measures put in place. And in my view at the time was, we have to take this seriously. And the view of most of the Canadian media and the Minister of Immigration, Mark Miller, was, it's just Americans posturing, right-wingers, Republicans. What was announced this week from the Department of Homeland Security? They're going to be putting more scrutiny on the northern border. It's not right-wing Republicans. Those are bureaucrats who work for Joe Biden. They have concerns about people trying to enter the United States from Canada because we're not taking care of our own border. We're not taking care of who we let in and who we vet. It's funny. I was going through some old clips looking for something, and I found Ralph Goodale clips. He was public safety minister when this guy got into the country, this LDD guy. And he was talking about how strict they were going to be on the vetting of Syrian refugees. And my ongoing complaint at the time was, you have to take this seriously, or you're going to let in the ISIS guys who the real refugees are fleeing along with the refugees. Looks like that is probably what happened here. And these guys just, they say words, they don't follow through. There's no meaning to their words. And if you don't take it seriously, the Americans will. Jean Chrétien after 9/11, there were all those stories, false stories saying that the hijackers came into the United States from Canada. Jean Chrétien told John Manley to go to Washington and do whatever he had to do to make sure the border wasn't shut and make the Americans happy. That's what we should have done when the Americans started raising issues weeks ago. Hasn't happened. Instead, they were dismissive. We're going to pay for it in the end.
Final word to you, Warren. Look, no one's trying to fearmonger here. We're not trying to scare people, but I go back to what I said earlier. We're slumbering through a September 10th mentality. And this is a very serious concern and should be for Canadians, particularly at a time when there's so much unrest all over the world. We see China and Russia saber rattling their ships through our Arctic. We have a government in Ottawa that either is incapable or unwilling to either address these issues or is capable of addressing these issues. Last word to you, Warren.
I'm writing a book right now about terrorism. And the thing that we know about terrorism is when an organization, a terror group like Hamas, is militarily throttled, as Israel has done since the horrors of October 7th, they move their activity online. They move their activity to radicalization of people in other places like Canada, leading to young men being killed, shot in the back at the War Memorial, leading to members of the armed forces being murdered in Quebec, mowed down with a car. They turn to lone wolf terror. And so this is what I believe is going to happen now, is these terrorist groups ranging from ISIS-K to Hamas to the PFLP, they're frustrated by the effectiveness of the Israeli and American-backed military effort. So they're going to turn their attention to so-called soft targets in Western democracies around the world. And we need to be vigilant about that. And other countries are being vigilant about it, except for one, the one in which we now live.
Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to the TorontoSun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.